No matter how chaotic it is, wildflowers will still spring up in the middle of nowhere. Sheryl Crow. Like wildflowers, you must allow yourself to grow in all the places people thought you never would. Lord. It is easier to tell a person what life is not, rather than to tell them what it is. A child understands weeds that grow from lack of attention, in a garden. However, it is hard to explain the wildflowers that one gardener calls weeds, and another considers beautiful ground cover. Shannon L. Alder. Wildflowers can't be controlled, and neither can the girl with a soul boundless as the sky, and a spirit as free and wild as the ocean. Melody Lee. I think I like wildflowers best, I explain. They just grow wherever they want. No one has to plant them. And then their seeds blow in the wind and they find a new place to grow. Rebecca. They are wildflowers. They would not want a name. Silas House. There is poetry among the wildflowers. Rachel Irene Stevenson. Wildflowers are the stuff of my heart. Lady Bird Johnson. Love is like wildflowers, it's often found in the most unlikely places. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Man has created some lovely dwellings, some soul-stirring literature. He has done much to alleviate physical pain. But he has not created a substitute for a sunset, a grove of pines, the music of the winds, the dank smell of the deep forest, or the shy beauty of a wildflower. Harvey Broom. She is like a wildflower, beautiful, fierce, and free. One person's weed is another person's wildflower. Susan Wittig Albert. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower. William Blake. You belong among the wildflowers, you belong in a boat out at sea, you belong with your love on your arm, you belong somewhere you feel free. Tom Petty. If all flowers wanted to be roses, nature would lose her springtime beauty and the fields would no longer be decked out with little wildflowers. Teresa of Lisieux. Magic exists. Who can doubt it, when there are rainbows and wildflowers, the music of the wind and the silence of the stars? Anyone who has loved has been touched by magic. It is such a simple and such an extraordinary part of the lives we live. Nora Roberts. Very little grows on jagged rock. Be ground. Be crumbled, so wildflowers will come up where you are. Rumi. I hope you are blessed with a heart like a wildflower. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. Dolly Parton. Wildflowers aren't meant to be cut and tamed. They're meant to be loved and admired. Anthony T. Hinks. Wildflowers don't grow haphazardly as we are led to believe. They grow in fantastic patterns which are different to each of us, you see. Anthony T. Hinks. If I had to describe the scent of Michigan in spring and summer, it wouldn't be a particular smell, blooming wildflowers or boat exhaust off the lake, it would be a color, green. Viola Shipman. I'm going to give you a handful of wildflowers so, each petal that falls will remind you that the earth breathes, and the moon rises. Carolyn Riker. I didn't wave my daisy. I felt small, the way an ant must feel looking up at a field of wildflowers. I was nothing. I was trapped below flowers, buried under them, while girls like Lizzie Lovett danced overhead. That was life. We all have a place. Chelsea Sidoti. Being preoccupied with our self-image is like being deaf and blind. It's like standing in the middle of a vast field of wildflowers with a black hood over our heads. It's like coming upon a tree of singing birds while wearing earplugs. Pema Churchard. It will create an excitement that will sweep the country like wildflowers. Samuel Goldwyn. I wake up thinking, what am I reading? What will I read next? I'm terrified that I'll run out, that I will read through all I want to, and be forced to learn wildflowers at last, to keep awake. Annie Dillard. It is no use trying to improve on children's names for wildflowers. Mary Hunter Austin. Wildflower corners are easy to maintain, but once gone, they are hard to rebuild. Aldo Leopold. My mother was perfectly horrified when I began shooting and tried to keep me in school, but I would run away and go quail shooting in the woods or trim my dresses with wreaths of wildflowers. Annie Oakley. Let me drink from the waters where the mountain streams flood. Let the smell of wildflowers flow free through my blood. Let me sleep in your meadows with the green grassy leaves. Let me walk down the highway with my brother in peace. Let me die in my footsteps before I go down under the ground. Bob Dylan. I am already kindly disposed towards you. My friendship it is not in my power to give. This is a gift which no man can make. It is not in our own power. A sound and healthy friendship is the growth of time and circumstance. It will spring up and thrive like a wildflower when these favor, and when they do not, it is in vain to look for it. William Wordsworth. Men do change, and change comes like a little wind that ruffles the curtains at dawn, and it comes like the stealthy perfume of wildflowers hidden in the grass. John Steinbeck. Some may wonder why I chose wildflowers when there are hunger and unemployment and the big bomb in the world. Well, I, for one, think we will survive, and I hope that along the way we can keep alive our experience with the flowering earth. For the bounty of nature is also one of the deep needs of man. Lady Bird Johnson. My special cause, the one that alerts my interest and quickens the pace of my life, is to preserve the wildflowers and native plants that define the regions of our land, to encourage and promote their use in appropriate areas, and thus help pass on to generation in waiting the quiet jobs and satisfactions I have known since my childhood. Lady Bird Johnson. What a lonely place it would be to have a world without a wildflower. Roland R. Kemmler. Literature is a vast forest, and the masterpieces are the lakes, the towering trees or strange trees, the lovely, eloquent flowers, the hidden caves, but a forest is also made up of ordinary trees, patches of grass, puddles, clinging vines, mushrooms, and little wildflowers. Roberto Bolaño. At these times, the things that troubled her seemed far away and unimportant. All that mattered was the hum of the bees and the chirp of birdsong, the way the sun gleamed on the edge of a blue wildflower, the distant bleat and clink of grazing goats. Alison Croghan. I dream of a quiet man who explains nothing and defends nothing, but only knows where the rarest wildflowers are blooming, and who goes and finds that he is smiling not by his own will. Wendell Berry. I think that people tend to associate the word wild with something that is used up and dirty, but I associate the word wild with wildflowers, wild roses, things in fields that haven't been hurt yet. So let's be things in fields that have healed and that have grown. Let's be wild. C. Joy Bell. Devilish men should not be allowed to hold kittens, babies, or bouquets of wildflowers. There ought to be an act of parliament. Tessa Dare. Wildflowers? She asked, confused. She said you liked them. She said to tell you to braid them into your hair. Cat Patrick. Make it so the poor are no longer despised and thrown away. Look at them standing about, like wildflowers, which have nowhere else to grow. Philip Yancey. And when our bodies rise again, they will be wildflowers, then rabbits, then wolves singing a perfect love to the beautiful, meaningless moon. Philip Appleman. The smallest of them was sprawled on his belly, face buried in a mound of wildflowers. Sarah J. Maas. They alighted on a little plateau covered in purple and orange wildflowers, its grasses hissing in the wind. Abraxos was practically grunting with joy, and Manon, her exhaustion as heavy as the red cloak she wore, didn't bother to reprimand him. Sarah J. Maas. My 20s were about exploring love and being a wildflower and trying to figure everything out. Now I'm not comfortable being that happy wildflower anymore, but I still don't feel like a woman. I wondered when that moment's going to hit. Drew Barrymore. Almost every person, from childhood, has been touched by the untamed beauty of wildflowers. Lady Bird Johnson. A strange breeze rustled through the clearing, temporarily overpowering the stink of trash and murk. It brought the smell of berries and wildflowers and clean rainwater, things that might have once been in these woods. Suddenly I was nostalgic for something I'd never knew. Rick Riordan. He's the path lined with wildflowers, and I'm Red Riding Hood. I've been warned, but I just can't resist the blossom and perfume that calls me over. Liz Reinhardt.